Homes you should avoid buying at all costs.
In the 2025 real estate market, buyers are becoming more and more cautious in the home buying process, and with great reason, with interest rates and prices and all that stuff being all over the place, right? So you need to know how to avoid making the costly mistakes that we've seen some people make.
I mean, just think about it. Have you ever bought a house and then realized you overlooked something or wish you could change something? I always think about our house in Asheville, beautiful, well-constructed home, but it had a shared driveway. And then when we went to go resell it, man, that was a problem.
It was. We finally got it sold. And then also with new construction, you could build a perfectly brand new house, and guess what? You still find issues. We had an example of two different houses right across the street from each other. One was a train wreck, all got fixed before they closed, of course, but man, and then the other one built splendidly and just right.
Since we warn all of our clients in our one-on-one consultations, we also wanted to share this valuable information with you too, because our goal is to be your guide, making it a smooth move and help you save time, money, and stress in your home buying journey.
Hey, real quick, it's Hal and Chris. If you're interested in buying or selling in Roanoke, reach out to us with the contact information on the screen.
And be sure to take the neighborhood quiz, which is in the description below, to find out what part of Roanoke is going to be best for you.
So let's jump right into the homes that come with hidden risks or challenges. And home type number one is going to be, make sure to avoid a home that needs extensive repairs or has major structural issues. Repair costs are potentially the most expensive repairs that can be made on a house, right? So, and once you get into the renovations and updates, there could be hidden issues as well, which is, almost always happens, which leads to higher cost. And for an example, recently we had some clients.
Okay, you have a good example.
We did video tour, looked at it in person, all that stuff. And it's like, we saw some things, but once we actually did the inspections after we're under contract, it just multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. It was crazy. Be very methodical on that front.
Also, there's some safety concerns that you need to take into consideration that put you and your loved ones in risk, like a roof caving in or electrical issues.
And when buying a home, you always want to be sure you're investing in something you will love for years to come. But if you're constantly adding to the honey-do list, you will have poured more money into the house than it is actually worth. You don't want to be upside down in the end, And it's especially true when there's major structural issues, which can drive up your cost in the tens of thousands of dollars. Oof.
As you kind of mentioned, as your realtor, we're going to point out things for you to be aware of and to take into consideration before making an offer. However, some things are just going to need further inspection by professionals.
So home type number two, avoid properties that are located in high-risk areas like flood zones, wildfire-prone regions, hurricanes, those types of things, because these areas may require expensive insurance, and you're going to have homeowners insurance. Having that is extremely important. In the event of major flooding or wildfires, though, it will likely not cover all of the costs and means it may come out of your pocket.
Yeah, and not only unexpected costs, you got to factor in those disasters that can cause a disruption to your family daily life, like work loss, basic food and supplies, the inconvenience of power outages and road closures. That could be a major concern.
Yeah, example of that would be in our area, we are in a valley, so you can have flash floods, which means your creeks will rise, that type of thing. So you want to make sure as you're investigating properties here in our area, and we'll help you do this as well, but you want to go to the FEMA website, which has the true flood zone mapping versus you can see some algorithmic stuff on some of the portals online. Those are not always accurate. You want to go to the source of truth, which is going to be the FEMA website to be able to find out if a house you're falling in love with is in a flood zone.
Plus later, when you're ready to sell that property, you're going to need to disclose damages that the house has incurred in the past, like flooding or if it had any wildfire damage. And that could result in the property being worth less than you originally paid for it.
Yes, no, so be super cautious on that front. Home type number three is you're gonna want to avoid homes with unresolved title, legal, or even zoning problems based on your situation. What we traditionally see in a normal buyer-seller transaction, title search will be done after you go under contract. If any issues are found, they're typically cleared before closing. Whereas a lot of times with an auction property or an investment style property, those are sold as is, including any title defects that may be there. So you may not find that out until after you close on the property. So that's a little bit of a risk you take if you go down that route as far as an as-is type of property that's an investment or auction.
Yeah. And if the title of the house is unresolved or clouded, your ownership could be contested in court because someone else technically has a legal claim on it. If this happens, you'll be most likely investing in costly inspections, appraisals, and some other hurdles throughout the home buying process.
Now let's also talk about zoning issues, because that could prevent you from legally doing what you would like to do with your house or the land itself. We usually had a contract that we were representing the seller, but the buyer had part of the contract that they had to be able to put a certain type of workshop on there, right? So that was an example. We also had another client who was buying a house on 5 acres. They wanted to add a structure to the property close to the road because they wanted to run a business out of it. But as soon as they called the county was like, heck no, you can't do that. So we did that due diligence up front. So we never even made an offer. So there were no issues there. But, those are instances where you want to make sure you protect yourself on zoning if there's something specific that you want to do with the property.
Like many of these other homes to avoid, we've got to think about resale, right? So if there's any legal or title defects with the house, you might have a difficult time trying to sell it later because it may not qualify for buyer financing, or buyers find out about the legal or title defects and just walk away.
I had some clients who were going to buy a house, and one of the things you have to get from a lender is you have to make sure you have homeowners insurance on the property. However, when they ran the search on the insurance side of things, there were all these repairs that had been done and claims that they couldn't prove on the seller side that they had been completed. They didn't have the true documentation. So I had to do some serious digging and finally found some insurance. Our buyers were able to get the house and get insurance, but it was very, very painful. So those are things that will not always pop up until you're under contract, but they're things to look for that you want to make sure you avoid when you're buying a house.
Home type number 4, you want to avoid properties in areas that are trending downward. You want to be looking for an asset that appreciates over time. Buying a house in an area that's trending downward can lead to declining school quality because of the lower funding and staffing shortages within the school systems. We have an example of this. One of our clients moved into a home adjacent to an elementary school, but after COVID, guess what? There was a lack of funding and decreased population, which led to the closing of that school.
And in that situation, I will say there was no way you could kind of predict that, right? So, but it could adversely affect their equity long term. And even if it doesn't apply to you now, be sure to think about your future self and your family. If you don't have kids now, it may not be a big deal, but for appreciation, you're going to take that into consideration, because as areas, trend downward, and many people decide to avoid the area, they move out. Typically there's a loss of amenities in the area. And with that comes an increase in crime rates a lot of times. And once those amenities move out of the area, it may increase your commute time. That additional cost of time and money to your daily life will be added because your additional fuel and those types of things.
You don't
right?
think about those things.
No.
But as things pull out, it will impact your daily life.
Yep.
Sure. Home type number 5, you want to avoid homes that had DIY upgrades.
Yeah, I call that a YouTube contractor 101.
YouTube special.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So they've done things by YouTube or do it yourself. Those houses that have those DIY or YouTube upgrades, it can be hard to tell if the quality of the work was good enough for safety standards or personal standards. We sometimes call it lipstick on a pig. Perhaps the repairs have been added to even cover up some major issues, and that leads to future repair costs, which could be minor or ginormous.
And like Chris said, we see this all the time, and we can usually pick up on it pretty immediately because we've seen so many houses, right? You can see gaps in the tile, bad paint jobs, missing molding, crooked doors, stinky odors. The list goes on and on and on and on. Yeah. And depending upon the DIY work, it could decrease the value of the house if the work was done below standard, causing resale problems, causing you a whole lot of money sucked into it in the end. So just not a good thing if it was DIY in a bad way.
Yeah, avoid these homes. But hey, we want to hear from you. Share your story. Have you ever considered purchasing a home and didn't? Let us know about it, and we'll see you on the next video.